And there's a place, it's called Hilltop, which is right by the Pink Apple, if you know where that restaurant used to be. But it's right on 6th, and they just opened up.
In Tunkhannock, was that?
It's in Tunkhannock, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's really cool because they have the raw milk. They're getting local farmers to sell their stuff there, like their meats. And so you're looking at hopefully a more organic product than
the whole community can take care of itself, but it's just not incentivized to do so.
Correct.
You know?
Exactly. Yes.
Are we rolling?
We're good. Yeah, we're going.
Oh, he didn't tell me.
Yeah. I was enjoying the story about the Tunkhannock and, the fresh stuff that we need to get into.
It is.
I'm all about that. Okay. So, hi, everybody. We're just eating snacks and stuff. We are here with Mike Lacey. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Mike and I met last week at Lou Jasikoff and yours Justice Watch event over at the Cultural Center.
Correct. Yes.
And Lou said to me, he's like, you got to talk to Mike. He's a pharmacist.
Uh-huh.
And I went, that's interesting because for like the last 3 years, I've wanted to talk to a pharmacist.
How about that? And Lou tends to get me into a lot of things if you look at our history.
He seems like your agent of chaos.
He is my agent. Yes, it's the black vortex that once you get in it, and you may not get out of it either. So we'll see how.
I got my guard up, man.
Oh,
I got my shield and my sword.
I've been buying his crystals for a couple of years now too, so he's got my money.
Yes, yeah. We talk about the.
Yeah, my head almost fell off last week when he's like, I do have the crystal bar, and I was like, what? Like, oh my god,
he does.
So, we have all been probably accused or made accusations about that we are spreaders of untruths. And instead of having all things be my opinion or the hypotheses that I've come up with, it's nice to have somebody who's like, I've been doing this for quite a while and I can speak to some of these things that I've been doing for quite a while.
Yes.
So can you give me your background on like where you grew, like where you grew up in your schooling?
Sure. Really simple. Grew up in South Wilkes-Barre, 1959. So it's quite a while ago. Was a Myers Mohawk graduate, 1977.
All right.
From there, I ended up at King's College. Ended up with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. My goal at the time was considering med school, but I got into the hospital. That's just not for me. Got my BS from King's, took a year off, worked in the hospital, and I became very attracted to pharmacy. From there, I applied to Temple University in Philadelphia, ended up there, and that's where in 1985 I graduated with my Bachelor of Science degree in pharmacy. Which then I went on to working for.
Oh, there's more.
There is more.
His education is deeper than I thought.
Because it brought me to a different way of looking at pharmacy.
Okay.
So you end up with the traditional retail pharmacy. Ended up with my own place for almost 18 years in a great little town referred to as Freeland, which is up by Hazleton. It became unprofitable because that's when the government came through and started giving you their Medicare Part D programs and not paying you anything.
I want to get into some of that.
Sure.
Yeah. So you have your own pharmacy.
Yes.
So you go like this. You go, not only do I want to help people in an advantageous way, I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because there's two things that I need that are difficult in my life to accomplish.
Right. Well, it was really interesting because you go into this having almost no money and all the no-sayers. So, everybody's watching this podcast. Whatever it is, you're going to always have a no-sayer. And many times it's your own family.
Sure.
In my case, it was not. But it was in many cases you do. So we took the chance, little money, put the house up as collateral. My wife and I were probably just married a year or so. She believed
was she supportive? Or
oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
This woman is a entrepreneurial spirit like you've never seen.
Okay.
So it was. I was working for an independent at the time. I just wasn't caring for it. And she goes, well, her thing is, well, then let's just buy our own.
Right.
Just that easy. I was like, okay. So we searched. We found that. We ended up there. The town was absolutely wonderful. I think they saw we wanted to institute things that weren't being done there. Just something as simple as, we deliver. Wow. Can you imagine?
Yeah, which now everybody does that.
Everybody does that. Yeah. So we ended up doing that. We ended up knocking down some buildings, putting up an 8,500 square foot store.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it was really, really fun and exciting, and be able to help people and say, you were like, man, I'm sorry your child's sick. It's $50, but you take that. We'll see you later. So it was being part of the community, just loving to, give money to your little leagues and things like that. Not a pat on our back, but just because we loved the community was so good to us, Mark, that you had to give back. It would be sinful in a sense where you didn't, because they were just a wonderful community.
Well, that's how you know you're a good person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
for people who I don't know if I'm a good person. I'm like, well, do you give when you don't have to because you feel compelled to?
Yes, correct.
You're a good person.
Yeah. So, and that's what was really great about it. And some of the things that I started to look into things, which, by the way, is not taught in pharmacy schools, are things like compounding. What other forms of alternative do we have to do it? Now, that was one of my goals, but
for people who don't know what compounding is, can you explain to me what a compound pharmacy?
Sure. Ironically,
there's a few around here.
There is, absolutely. Ironically, it's really where pharmacy started. Right. I mean, that was, if you ever watched It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, you saw the pharmacist back there mixing things up. Well, that's what it was. So you had
you were actually making medicine.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a fit all. Okay. So it wasn't, this particular individual has something wrong with them. This one has something similar. Therefore, we're going to give everybody the same thing in the same amount. That's not how our bodies are designed. So today we're looking at fact-based medicine. Well, let's look at this blood work. Oh, this is off. This is off. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you're male, female, you just get whatever the med schools tell you should get. So,
so was that at the beginning of your career? Was everything treated that way?
It's treated that way.
Like one size for all?
No, it was
So when you started your business and when you went to medical school, I'm assuming it's called pharmacy school.
Pharmacy school, yes.
Okay. It was not one size fits all.
It wasn't. And here was the great part. You had more communication and cooperation between the doctor and the pharmacist. It wasn't always, here's the prescription. We're not going to talk to anybody. We're going to. So doctors would be reaching out to the pharmacist and saying, hey, look, I have this patient here. We've tried this. Do you have any other suggestions? So there was a real camaraderie amongst medical professionals. And now that getting together and looking what's best for the patient has now, in my opinion, been replaced by big pharma. Big pharma, when you get, even in pharmacy school, I have some students, and one that works with me, and she has a very open mind of looking at things, but so many of them are already, they don't have their own critical thinking skills. Okay?
That's weird, ain't it?
It's very, and that's in our whole educational system, I believe, and I know we're getting way off track here, but when you look at the inability for that student, no matter what it is they're in, whether it's meds, pharmacy, IT, when you're already told what the result is, and we don't really know what the result is, then how are we helping people? How are we being able to say, okay, this individual isn't really, even though the symptoms are demonstrating this, there's something else over here we're not looking at.
Well, it seems okay. So now I'm ignorant and naive to the pharmacy industry. Okay, right? I've only read the things that I know. Basically, the majority of the things that I know now have been based off of the last 4 years when I went and got the Reynolds wrap and put it around my head.
Gotcha.
Okay. So where was the shift where it went from individualized medicine to everyone is a Buick?
I think
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
I know exactly what you're saying. And no one's ever asked that question. That's a great question. And it made me think for a minute. So I graduated in 1985. So you were just starting to see a little bit more of the third-party insurance companies getting more involved in paying for products. So,
okay, for the idiots, third-party insurance is
third-party insurance is your Blue Cross Blue Shields, your Humana, your insurance.
And before that, what was it?
Here's the great part. Before that, I grew up in a family that was lower middle class. We could always afford our medicine. We would go to it. I can remember those folks in Wilkes-Barre who are my age. If you can remember Doc Anthony. Doc Anthony was a pharmacist. And mom would call up and say, my son has diarrhea. Come on down, Marion. We'll give you some Paregoric. And that's just an example. But we had a little money, but we could always afford it. Now you can't. If you don't have the insurance, you can't afford it. So the prices are being driven up by insurance companies working with big pharma. So here's how it works. There's a thing called PBM, which is prescription benefit managers.
Okay.
And what when they first came out, what they were supposed to do was go to the Blue Crosses of the world, example, and we will manage your prescription program for you. And what does that mean? We're going to go to the drug companies and we're going to say, you know what? We'd love to put you on the formulary, but you're too high. So you need to bring that price down to do that. Okay, that sounds great.
Mhm.
Well, what happened was the prescription benefit managers started to see exactly how much money could be made in this. So they've basically taken over the whole thing. So now they come back and they say, okay, drug companies, we want a 30% reduction. They say yes. Do you think that drug company is willing to take a 30% cut?
No.
So guess what happens? Price goes up 30% or more.
So they say, we'll give you the cut, but we'll raise the price.
Yes. Exactly. So it's just this snowball of things. So
fuck?
right, exactly. So it's the shell game is what it is. So you know what, Mr. Jones, now you're only going to pay a $50 copay today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is normally $500.
Right.
Sounds great, but here's the sad part about what's happening here, in my opinion, in America, is I was in the hospital and I was talking to a very nice doctor, younger guy. He was from India.
Mm-hmm.
And he just knew I was a pharmacist. And he said, what's the deal with the drug prices? So anybody out there, and I'm sure there's a product, I'll use as an example, called Eliquis. It's to help to keep the blood thin, stop, clotting if you have that type of medical issue. I had a gentleman come in with his insurance company. He had to pay $500 for it with his insurance.
With his insurance.
With his insurance. Now this is, and it really makes me mad because these are folks that have worked their entire lives to be responsible, he couldn't get the medicine. This doctor I was referring to, he said, you can go into our pharmacies in India, no insurance, $35. $35.
Explain how that works. Explain that to me like I am not an idiot.
Okay.
Because it sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yes, and just one more example to do that. So in Canada, similar situation. So now, do I have proof of this? But to me, it seems like our citizens are paying for the world's medicine, right?
Seems that way.
Seems that way. Yes, but then I also look at, is it something deeper than that? And we can go right back to the example of the drug companies working with the insurance companies. So, and I think if we zero that in, because it really started to escalate when George Bush created the Medicare Part D program in 2006.
Okay,
so
what's that?
The Medicare Part D program is, so you have regular Medicare,
okay,
Medicare B, which is for hospitalization. Then they came out with a D program. So that was, the D stood for drug. So we're going to give you this card to help you pay for your medicine. At that point in time, I noticed.
Are they subsidizing it? Like, in other words, like the taxpayers are paying for the offset of that medicine?
Yes, for that medicine. So our just like now with Medicare, they've taken it from us through the years. Supposedly, what they really do with it, we don't know. But
they give money to Ukraine.
They give money to Ukraine. Yeah, yes, and
how those bombs, boys.
Yes. So now what I saw in 2006 is that, as a pharmacist, an independent pharmacist, our reimbursement went down in the toilet. And yet drug prices went up. So, and it's one of the reasons why I ended up selling my business, because I was just, at that point, I was just turning dollars.
But doesn't it seem like a move that would crush independent pharmacies?
And it is.
If you want to get rid of independent pharmacies and bring the big boys in,
yes,
that seems like the move to do.
And here's the interesting part. When our country first started, we had 90% independent. We had 10% bigger business. Now we've reversed that. So who's more likely? Here's the question. Who's more likely to give big dollar financing to political individuals and causes than big business?
Right.
And what's really cool, when we own our own independent, we had become the voice of Freeland, in a sense, because we had, that the old coffee shops that we wanted, people would come there and congregate and talk about the things that were going on and the things that they didn't like. And
at the pharmacy.
Yes. And then they'd say, we'd have that discussion. And I was really open. I wore everything on my sleeve of my beliefs. I didn't hide anything or think maybe I was going to, it was very interesting. This could just be coincidence, but every now and then, auditors from the insurance companies would come into any pharmacy just to make sure everybody was staying, legal, moral, ethical.
Interesting how those are the ones who are coming to
Yes.
say if you're being
Isn't it? Yes.
legal,
Yes.
ethical, and moral.
Yes. So just to let you know how government can try to influence you. So I was very outspoken about things. I allowed that voice to be heard in our
And what
pharmacy.
year is this?
That would have been probably somewhere between, it's a range, between 2006 and 2010.
So you have political opinions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now I bought the
But you
pharmacy.
also allow other people to have political
Absolutely.
opinions. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So now I purchased the pharmacy in 1995. We ended up selling it in 2012. But what was really interesting, could just be coincidence, that I found that there were 3 state programs that we were taking. I was getting audited every year by the state. But my competitor down the street wasn't getting audited at all.
Okay.
So is it, we're going to give you a spanking for being outspoken or not? I don't know what it was.
But is this because you were outspoken like on the radio and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we were outspoken on the town square, in a sense, metaphorically speaking. So people were, my opinion tend to be, I hate putting labels on opinions.
I hate them too.
I was just like,
Because whatever box you put me in, I'm not going to fit 100% in that box. Same way with I do with you.
Right.
Like it's like the Venn diagram where certain things overlap.
Yes.
And some of them are just fundamental things that people believe, and then some of them are just like the wedge issues that they use now, where people think that they have to fit in that box to be accepted by society.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, I guess probably.
So don't put yourself in a box.
I don't
just be like,
want it.
here's some of the colors.
Here's some of the colors. What really, and I don't know why. I think it has a lot to do with my upbringing, but when I see an injustice, it pisses me off,
Okay.
and especially with people who are vulnerable, the older, the younger, and some of these people.
Bullies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when I would see some of these people where they would, and at the time they were World War II vets, because there was a lot at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether you believed it what happened in World War II, these people sacrificed for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, without a doubt. And they were just getting screwed over with these co-pays. They were huge. I myself thought they should be getting them for nothing, but that was my, and so, they were being made promises by our government throughout their entire lives. And then it wasn't happening. And it was, so I would voice my opinion to state representatives, to federal representatives. And it was just, in my opinion, it was just wrong what was happening to this particular group of people.
Right. And it's your right as an American to say those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was just, so that's why I don't want a box, and I'm no knight in shining armor.
None of us are.
No.
Yeah.
It just pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw that, and I grew up with, the greatest generation, so they didn't like to be pissed off, and they said things about it. So I grew up with that type of attitude. And it stays with me today. So I would just, and if it happened to be something that a particular political individual was doing wrong, I would call them out on it. And I called them out on it quite regularly. So I think that was why the audits occurred. But, it had nothing to do with George W. Bush by any means. But he kind of set the precedence to let's allow more government into healthcare.
Yeah.
And anytime, I don't know if you agree with this, but in healthcare, every time I see more influence from the government, it gets worse.
People get sicker and people die.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. It gets worse, and they just continue to allow it. And they have, and some people, and COVID is a perfect example, they influence by fear.
Right. I want to get into all that.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I want to do is I want to create a baseline for you, right?
Okay.
Your experiences, the things that you know, and then we can move on to like the things that like I think a lot of people are curious about.
Okay.
And haven't really heard or been open to the idea, because anybody in a position such as yours, just to say I think that's wrong,
mm-hmm.
now gets put in the box that you don't like to get put in,
right.
as a nonconformist or
Correct.
somebody who doesn't like to go along with the group.
Correct.
So, as a pharmacist,
mm-hmm.
what are you're the person giving someone medicine that if you give them the wrong medicine, you could do severe harm
Correct.
to them.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So what over your years of experience, like, what do you think you have become pretty educated on as far as like individual human beings and the right courses of action to make sure that they don't get harmed?
Okay, so as far as preventing,
in other words, what I'm trying to say is like sometimes it's not the doctor that's the smart one; it's the nurse.
It's the nurse, right?
Right. So like, what puts you in a unique position to know things, especially about biology, molecular biology? Am I in the right? Am I in the right world
there's
here?
A couple different ways.
Because molecules in the body do certain things,
sure. So a particular
and
drug,
mixing things
and mixing things. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So can you tell me like the scope and breadth of like, if I was in an elevator with you, I'm like, what do you do to not harm? Like, what do you need to know to not harm people?
Okay. So one of the things, it's just this is just the general working stuff. We have things in place to prevent an error in dispensing. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but that doesn't have to do with the person. But just so if doctor orders drug X has a code on it. We make sure it's entered correctly. And then if the bottle doesn't scan right, pick the wrong one. So that's just the mechanics of it.
Yeah, that seems like logistics. Tell me about like as you
right.
as a person.
Right. So
Yeah.
as a person, so what we do is
Like you're an old school pharmacist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me about like what's the difference between an old school pharmacist and like whatever new guy shows up today?
Okay. Yeah. So and
like, what do you know differently?
What I know differently is that it's okay to question everything. So and what's happening right now is that there is so much less communication driven by IT, in my opinion, that so a lot of doctors use a technique that's called e-scribing. So they get in the computer and they send it over electronically. And what that was supposed to do was say, okay, now you don't have to worry about trying to read your writing. Okay. All right, great. But unfortunately, I'm not sure who's running these through because we have more inaccuracies and directions than I myself personally had seen in the old way of doing things. So what my responsibility is, if that prescription doesn't make sense, I need to question it constantly. And what we also do, I believe, at the pharmacy level is that we have that interaction more face-to-face, I believe, than the doctors and the nurses do, because they're the ones that will come and say, well, my doctor gave me this, but he didn't explain that. And that's okay. They're busy and I'm not beating them up over it. But if I see, Mr. John Doe comes in and he's got a prescription for this particular medicine, but this doctor gave this medicine and they're similar, and that could be a real problem. So what we try to do is decipher through all the information and to make sure that, because not all doctors know that their patient is seeing another doctor because they fail to tell them. Mm-hmm. So it's our responsibility to be able to make sure that everything looks right, that it all goes together, that they know what they're doing and why they're taking it. And there's also a lot of misunderstanding when the patient goes to the doctor, and it could be overwhelming in today's medicine. Why is that? Because of the low reimbursements that all healthcare gets, the doctor gets maybe 10, 15 minutes. If you're working for a big institution and you get beyond a regular basis of seeing a patient for more than 15 minutes, you're told about it.
You're told about it by the hospital.
Yes. Because
so if you spend a little bit more time than you air quote should with your patient,
right, consistently,
there is a, let's say, even if it's talking to it, it is a consequence.
There is a discussion, that's for sure.
Which is a consequence.
Correct. So they're driven, and it's always, and I'm not, but everything in this world is driven by profit, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't stay in business and do your thing if you're not making. So our government and our insurance companies have really, in my opinion, driven healthcare in a negative way because of such low reimbursements. And now businesses, my business when I was in and the hospitals, they have to find a way to offset these negative reimbursements. And many times it's due to poor healthcare because you're just not getting you. And what I say, and I try to tell some of the folks, if a person comes in and they seem like they're whiny or this, just listen to them. Because you know what? Just 5 extra minutes to find out what and ask the question. Because sometimes the patient doesn't even know what question to ask because they're so confused.
So you got to hear them out. And somewhere in there is the answer to the riddle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where I think old school pharmacy has, and it could be experience too, has really taken I will spend that time with that patient. And what's really wonderful when you build relationships with people, and I believe pharmacy is not just pharmacy, it's relationship building. And this is why, and it's so great because if I'm consulting someone, taking some time trying to get them out, other folks are waiting, they're okay with that. Because you know what? I think they realize I could be there someday.
Sure.
You know, and we'll just politely say he'll be right with you. Oh, that's okay. You know, Mike's okay. We'll wait or come back or whatever. So I think when you start to show general concern for the folks that you meet every day, I think that comes out. I think people appreciate that. I think they begin to trust you. And trust is huge in anything today. And I think healthcare is really taking on a trust issue.
So you would always, okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What are the conditions for you to refuse to fill a prescription?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways of looking at it. So I would refuse a couple ways. I would refuse a prescription if I felt there was, say, an interaction of a drug between one doctor and another. So what happens is that now it is time for us to get on the phone and clarify this with the two doctors to make sure that, in fact, you know, Dr. X knows what Dr. Y is prescribing. Okay, so that is really, in my opinion, is what we should be doing. I mean, we're really the gatekeepers of making sure that, you know, people are getting the right medications and for the right cost. So that's really where I would refuse that prescription until, and I'll, you know, generally say, you know, I need to call the doctor. I have questions on it because you want to do it right.
Sure.
You know, you don't want to say, oh, your doctor just screwed up. And I've seen that done, and that's totally inappropriate professionally, you know, because we don't know what's going on the other end. So you just, you know, I have some questions about this. I'm concerned. I just want to talk to your doctor and clarify that I'm understanding this. Okay, great. So that's what we do. Now, there are some times, you know, when we get into addictive personalities where, you know, we have a screen now that shows that, you know, this person just
Timmy's on their 15th Vicodin prescription this month.
Yeah. So at that time,
so abuse, you would deny it for abuse.
Yes.
And you would deny it for a negative interaction.
Yes.
Is there any other reasons why you would deny it?
So
as a pharmacist,
yes. You know, and we'll put on some restraints, but there are times, like for example, vaccine. Let's say the COVID shot. People will come in, and we can get into my opinion, but we can get in, and they.
Well, I was working on prior to the shot.
Yeah,
that's where I'm leading you. So let me lead you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, now you know my game.
Right.
So those are the only two reasons I think that a pharmacist should deny.
Yeah, I mean, there's
prescription.
There's some gray areas, you know, but
like on a real unique case by case basis.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a non-harmful medicine that would be denied? In other words, a medicine that will not harm you, that is given all around the world, to be denied at a pharmacy?
It's something that we can dispense, we have, but we deny it?
You refuse the prescription. A pharmacist would refuse the prescription.
Other than the situations that we just discussed. But every medication...
So prior to 2020, would anyone deny a prescription other than abuse or harmful interaction?
Nothing jumps out at me, no.
Okay.
No.
That gets me into what I found interesting at the beginning of COVID was no treatment. And they said there was no treatment for COVID.
Yeah, well, we know that's wrong.
Did you know when did you realize that?
I realized that.
So COVID hits December of 2019,
correct.
Ramps up, lockdowns March 2020.
Yep, by February of 2020.
So you knew a month before the lockdowns?
Yes.
And what did you know?
Reminds me
the lockdowns were March of 2020.
Okay, so it would be the end of February and the middle of March. It was clear that there were treatments for COVID. Yes.
And how did you know that?
Really simple. Now I was at Texas at the time, so I was working.
So you were in Texas when all the madness started to ramp up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there was a where I was working for independent pharmacy at the time, and there was also what's really neat about independent, whether it's pharmacies or doctors. They can be self-thinkers. So when you get into...
they're not employees.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there was a doctor that I was working with, and he immediately did two things. One, he took his office, and he made one space just for COVID patients. And he put in different ventilation systems, and he separated. And this is how smart he was. he like was always a step ahead of what the feds were going to tell you to do. So if he did not make that change in his office,
They were going to tell him to anyways.
they would shut the whole office down.
Okay, fair enough.
So if you had one COVID patient came in,
So he did it to say, how do I stay in business and help people?
correct.
Okay.
Okay. Shortly after that, he starts prescribing. What's he ordering? Hydroxychloroquine,
Uh-huh.
Z-Pak.
Uh-huh.
Now, hydroxychloroquine is the big no-no that we were told that was going to be harmful. Okay?
Right.
Now,
that was I think that was in April.
he was using it before April, though.
Yeah, but I think it was April where they were like, crazy people use that.
Well, right, and along with the ivermectin, of course,
Yeah.
too, because that was another alternative. But he was using a steroid. What this man was doing
Was it a corticosteroid?
Yes.
Okay.
So he used it because he realized that there was a lot of inflammation in the lungs. So he used it not just orally, and he did use orally, but he also used it inhalation-wise, product called budesonide. So you would inhale it because what happened,
Which happens with a lot of people with like nebulizers and stuff. Yes,
it does.
Yeah.
Because he was realizing
It's like an inhaler,
Yes. Now,
but it's like a full run.
It's on
It's
the
not like a
machine.
and you're breathing in and out and in and out and in and out.
Yeah. And he was looking at, and this is where the self-thinkers really start to say, and where they use their critical thinking skills. So he's realizing that, darn, we have cytokine storm going on here. What is cytokine storm? It's when the body recognizes that there is a huge infection of some sort, and it just pours in everything it can. And what happens is part of the things that occur with this immune response is huge amounts of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in this case was respiratory wise. So he realized, okay, we're going to do the steroid inhalation. We're going to do a steroid orally. We're going to use hydroxychloroquine. And we're also going to use Z-Pak because the Z-Pak helped any secondary bacterial infections that may occur.
So it's a multi-drug protocol.
Yes.
Not just one
Correct.
drug.
Right. So
Okay.
this is all together because now he's, in my opinion, now he is looking at all the different effects COVID is having on the body all at one time. And so before I left for Texas, so I would say probably I left Texas in October of 2020. And before I left, and it was earlier, it was probably in the summer, I said, Doc, I have a question for you. And he was really cool because he
Oh, you were there for like almost a year.
almost, yes.
Okay.
I said, okay, now honestly, some opinions. And I would see these people come in and I said, I would like to know, I have two questions. How many people have you treated? What was your success rate? And how long did it take them to get better?
Uh-huh.
I've seen well over 100 patients. He said, I have 100% success rate and they're back on their feet within 2 to 3 days. And it doesn't matter what age group they were, what other health issues they had. That was, and you also
So they talked about comorbidities. So it
Yes,
didn't matter how many
comorbidity.
comorbidities they had?
No. And what was also interesting is because of the part of Texas I was in, there was also a lot of Hispanic, of Mexican descent. So they deal with a lot of diabetic issues, got them fixed. You had Caucasian people with their issues, got them fixed. So it wasn't even a genetic issue that, okay, he just picked one group of people and they live a better lifestyle. No, it was a huge mix of people. 100% for over 100 people on their feet within 2 to 3 days using hydroxychloroquine. He felt that the hydroxychloroquine was the thing that kicked it. All these other things were helping the symptoms until the hydroxychloroquine kicked it.
Yeah,
So-
because it's a respiratory infection. So
Yes.
the first thing that you want to do is, well, there's things that happen.
Yes.
So like the infection hits, then your body reacts,
Yes.
then it does other things, and then other things. So
Yes.
it's like 3 or 4 things that happen. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to address
Yes.
all the things that
Yes.
are happening.
Yes. So you have a cascade.
Yes.
Right, one comes up, the next one, the next one. So his idea was, and what was really, really neat was I was fortunate to be working in a pharmacy that was one independent, huge compounding, and we understood and recognized.
Now, independent means not Rite Aid, not
right.
CVS,
You
not Walgreens.
own your own place, right?
Okay.
Because if it was CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, that wasn't happening. So it wasn't about. They were. I don't know if. Why they were stubborn, they just didn't believe it, or they were worried about liabilities. I can't tell you why they weren't willing to do that. Or maybe this particular prescriber wanted to say, yeah, you know what? I know they're not going to fill them anyway, so I'm just not going to waste my time. I'm going to go to somebody like an independent because I know they're going to work with me. So, and what's really interesting was that we at the pharmacy have put together. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to keep connected.
Sure, that's okay.
Just keep it a fist.
Sure.
Yeah.
Had put together, not the hydroxychloroquine, but a list of things that the local emergency rooms started to use, and they were natural products that we had, non-prescriptions, that the emergency was using.
At the hospitals, we're starting to use these.
Yes. Yes.
And when's this?
That would have been still in 2020. That would be probably the summer of 2020.
So June, July,
yeah,
they start implementing those as their protocols.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we sent them the protocol that was not prescription. It was just all
here's over-the-counter stuff that nobody needs.
Right. And
here's some turmeric.
Turmeric, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that was actually part of it. And I had a list of things, but it was effective. For everybody, no, because if those. The big mistake people were making was, I don't know what this is, but I'll kick it, right? We all do that.
Right.
So by the time they went for help, they were really desperate because they had just waited too long, especially with the health issues that some folks have, with respiratory issues, diabetes. They were really put into it. And I think that's really where this whole thing happened, where we need to get you being treated early. Yes,
yeah.
And being treated with the hydroxychloroquine and the ivermectin. And what was really making me angry about the hydroxychloroquine, it's dangerous. Hydroxychloroquine, I've been doing this for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
That has been on the market for decades, used for people with lupus, used for people with rheumatoid arthritis. It was safe.
And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand. It's like, it's a repurposed drug.
Right.
Like I don't think people understand that, like, when you say repurposed drug, it means it's not the marketing label on the bottle.
Correct.
You can use it for other things, which is how they found out Viagra works.
Right. Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, yes.
So what you're saying is that you probably from your first years of being in business have prescribed hydroxychloroquine, which means it has a robust safety data profile.
Yes.
And what are some of the worst things that can happen if you take hydroxychloroquine?
You know what? I've never seen anything happen.
You've never once had a patient or somebody come back to you and be like, "Man, that hydroxychloroquine made my foot fall off."
Beat me up. I can't take this, because you do get that with medication. The side effects are so severe for a particular. Not one person did I ever see come back and say, "I can't take this hydroxychloroquine." Are there people? I'm sure there are. I had never experienced in almost 40 years anyone who could not tolerate hydroxychloroquine.
So in a worst case scenario, it does nothing.
Right. Correct.
And it won't harm you.
Right.
So why not try it?
Why not? It's so, and think about that. So we're taking a drug that we're saying no to, that we have seen for decades. We know its safety profile, and saying no to this, but we are willing to take a vaccine that had no animal trials at all, which is absurd because there's usually animal trials, then nothing. And we're willing to say that's safe. And that's what is mind-boggling to me. Let the doctors be doctors and let them do what they know. Now, to give you, this particular physician was probably in his 50s, so he was a self-thinker. And I'm concerned now when I see what's coming out of med schools today, is that here's what we see on the paperwork, and here's how you treat it. That I don't know that they would be able to today say, you know what, I think hydroxychloroquine is going to work. The studies show it's going to work, and I'm going to use it. I don't know that. And there are a lot of great young physicians out there. I don't want to say that, but they're limited by what they're taught, and they're limited by what they're allowed to do.
So I heard a term over the last few years called GIGO. Okay. Did you ever hear that?
I have not.
It had to do with peer-reviewed studies, stuff like that. And the premise of it is garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If you feed it the wrong information, it will perform the wrong task.
Correct. Yes.
That is something that I think we need to really pay attention about, because you could say, yeah, there's a lot of great students and young doctors coming out of there, but it was garbage in, and now you're going to get garbage out.
Right. And when you look at who's funding our med schools today,
who is it? Who is funding our med schools today? Dan? Is it us? Is it Kellogg's?
I thought it was from like organic farmers and like natural beef.
The homeopaths. A lot of homeopaths.
Oh, you're close.
Yeah.
You're close.
All the good stuff that's for us.
So who does who does fund our colleges, of especially medical schools?
Who does pharma work for?
Right. That big percentage of it is big pharma.
So for people that don't know, if you pay for it, you basically set the curriculum.
Yes, you do. Yes.
Do you find an issue with that?
I find a huge issue with it, and it's obvious, right? Because they're going to tell you what drug to use, and this is how we're going to use it, and this is when you're going to use it, and we're taking away the ability to use our critical thinking skills, just like this doctor in Texas did, because one, we don't know an alternative. Okay, we don't know, and we can get back to, I get passionate about this, about compounding pharmacy, because now here's what's so cool about compounding pharmacy. Let's just say we have 5 women in front of us that need estrogen replacement. Oh, well, you know what? Big Pharma gives us 3 choices. But you know what? These women are just all different. They all need different strengths. They all need different types. That's what compounding can do for them. The doctors see that. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of compounding doctors, and we're limited. And what also comes, which should be no surprise, that there's a book called United States Pharmacopoeia. And what that does, it tells us, it's a book of recipes, really, for the folks to use that are compounding. But guess who's infiltrated them? The government. Now, like, out of all the board members, they're halfway on the board. So now they've come in and have made it so difficult to open a compound of pharmacies with all the restrictions and the regulations that some pharmacies have just said, I can't do it. It's going to cost me $150,000 just to put in the things I need to stay open because of all the regulations they put on it.
What would they call that when they put up an obstacle that would not lead to better results? You know what I mean? Like what is there a word for that?
A hindrance?
Corruption?
it could be one of those, but I that's the thing that I don't think people understand is like these things such as compound pharmacies are now also being, I don't know another word for it, but taken over.
And here's a really simple example how this can help. And this is not quite as critical, but we had a lady who had shingles, older lady. Of course, you got the big pharma product. Copay is $350. And this particular cream was, I believe, 5%. So she couldn't afford it. But we had compounding. So we called the doctor and said, Doc, here's what we can do. Oh, and by the way, the pharmacy, if they dispensed it, was going to lose $100.
So you were going to end up paying $100 for her to get that prescription?
Yes. And she couldn't afford it anyway.
But yours an independent pharmacy.
Right.
What would happen at CVS?
Well, at CVS, here's the option. And again, here's the product. Here's what doctor ordered. Here's what's going to cost. That's it.
But the pharmacy's not going to be out $100. CVS isn't going to be out $100.
No. And not only that, but the patient's not going to pay $300. They can't. They don't have the money. So the patient's copay is $300. And the ironic, so the whole prescription may have cost, let's just say it costs the pharmacy $500.
Mm-hmm.
The patient pays $300. And the insurance, you would say, okay, the insurance is paying $200.
$200, yeah.
No, because they're shorting the pharmacy $100. So they're only paying $100 of it, and we're losing $100 on the prescription. So how do you stay in business losing $100 on every prescription that comes through the door? So
while the other ones aren't.
They aren't, right. So, but here's what compounding is able to do. So this lady's got shingles, horrible thing. So we call doc and say, we can compound that. And here's what we can do. We can give you a higher percentage of that medication. So it's going to be more effective. Mrs. Jones is now, instead of paying $300, is going to pay $50 for it. Oh, and by the way, we made $20. So you've got a product that now the patient's going to buy. It's a better, more effective product, and everybody wins. The doctor's patient gets what he wants for her. She gets the product, and we make the product, and we can still make money on it. So
what's the argument to get rid of compound pharmacies?
Call me suspicious, but
have you ever heard an argument to say that they're
yes,
they're not good, and why aren't they good, or we need to get rid of them?
The feds want to say that there's too many areas that are not being regulated enough.
So they don't have enough control.
Correct.
And until they're willing to acquiesce,
right. And what they do is they take some really, really bad. There's bad people in every profession out there.
Bad plumbers, bad dog catchers.
Absolutely. So
bad literate. What do you poets?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Podcasters.
So they
bad
take,
podcasters. Yeah,
sure. So they take one guy who was giving IV, and that's a form of compounding too. Is making IVs for a cancer patient. He was a scumbag, and he was not putting all the chemo in the bag. Actually, I think maybe he may have been doing a favor, but anyway, he was sub therapeutically giving the product. So he was making, if that cost $10,000, he was essentially making $10,000 on it.
Right.
Patient wasn't getting the medication. So they've taken that one example of a scumbag
and then painted everybody with it.
Right. So now and that's the excuse.
As opposed to like, how many times did the pharmacies that are CVS, Walgreens, whatever, screw up a prescription and that person died?
Right. Exactly. And what's really, here's when you look at least, again, my opinion, when you look at what I think the things that are driving up costs are the drug companies and the insurance companies. So what happens if there's compounding? Insurance is cut out of it because it's cash pay. The big pharma is cut out of it because we're making it. So why does the government, why are they concerned about good health care for an affordable price for the patient?
Well, it's not about why are they concerned about it. Why don't they want it?
That's exactly right.
Why don't they want good health care?
Right.
What's best for the patient?
Sure.
What's best for the doctor? What's best for the pharmacy?
Yes. And why don't they want affordable drugs?
Sure.
And just another example, when drugs were going up so high and I was still in business, I called up the feds. I don't remember which department, but I wanted to go over to Canada and buy products, bring them back, and save my customers money. I was told that I would be put in jail immediately.
For the same product.
And that's a felony. So our federal government has said it is illegal for me to cross the border into Canada to acquire those drugs.
But the same product that's available in the United States?
Exactly the same product.
So what you're saying to me is this, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a simple person.
Right.
You think Big Macs are too expensive here.
Right.
So you drive across the border to buy cheaper Big Macs.
Correct.
To bring them back to sell for cheaper than they sell here.
Yes.
That's a felony.
Yes.
Same product.
Same product. Because
so then why not make our product, why not make our Big Mac the same price as the Canadian Big Mac?
And that's where the question lies. I mean, it's hard not to be suspicious about that scenario, right? I mean,
are we all paying for this?
Well, we are in a sense, because I hear like a lot of people say, "Well, I don't care because I'm not on drug. I'm not paying for it." Well, guess what?
You are.
You are.
You are.
Yes. If you are paying taxes, you are paying for it. There's absolutely no.
So we're paying for the how do you say that? Subsidization of the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies to get more out of us for less.
Correct. And let's take now.
So wait. They're taking our tax dollars to subsidize the medicine, and then they're charging us for the medicine.
Yes. And let me ask you this:
what fucking world are we living in?
But who created the law that says I can't go to Canada and buy that medicine?
I'm fascinated now. Who?
Right.
Who did it?
Well, our government created the law. I don't know which when that was put into place. And here's, it gets even better because trying to help people so they can afford their medicine. There's actually the one positive, I'm waiting for them to stop that, is that you can go to your doctor and say, "Doctor, over in X pharmacy in Canada, if you write the prescription and send it to them,
they'll send it.
They'll send it to me and I can afford it, not going on my insurance." Because now instead of paying $100 on my insurance, I'm only paying $35 out of my pocket.
Are they willing to do that?
Some are.
And what and the ones that aren't are, I'm assuming, employees of a big health
system.
Probably
so. I can't say that for sure, but I can say that. So
they're going to find. I mean, the big health providers know, like, "Hey, Pete, saw you sent a prescription to Toronto,
right? Right.
So you can't get away with it. They're going to know."
You could, and what a lot of people don't know is that hospitals pay less than, I should say, institutions pay less than retail pharmacy does for them too. So they could say to them, "Well, if we keep seeing that, and again, just a scenario, you're not going to get that cheap price from us anymore. We're going to raise that price, right, as if it's retail. They're out of business." So it really is the fact that why are these things occurring? Why does our government not want to see better health care for less money? And the only thing I can come up with is that this is really on our legislators, who created the law that says I can't go to Canada.
I look at it as if they don't want to fix it, it means they want it to happen.
Correct.
So
yes.
I think when we asked it, I hear people asking these questions lately where it's like, what's Andy's big one where he's like, why aren't they doing anything? Like my buddy's just like the homeless situation that we're dealing with. He's like, why aren't they doing anything? Right. And it brings me back to like, they don't want to do anything.
They don't want it. It's almost.
So if they don't want it, why do they want it?
Why do they want it? That's
right.
That's the question. And it's almost like they want civil unrest of some sort.
Well, or let's not even say that.
Okay.
Let's not even say it's as dark as that.
Okay.
It seems to be incentivizing human suffering and pain.
It does.
Okay, so why would they want to incentivize human suffering? We don't have to answer that question now, but it's just a really good question to ask.
Sure.
Why would they want to do that?
Why would you want to do that?
That's weird.
That is.
And as far as me growing up, I mean, you got a couple years on me, but you look my age because you're probably eating well up at that goddamn farm and stuff.
That's right. I'll get you those eggs and turn you right around. No problem.
We were always told not to hurt people,
right?
Especially on purpose
and help people.
Sure.
It's if if we've been blessed, we're supposed to bless others. And that's what. And this is totally off topic, but when I went in, I'm from
Wyoming
all off
County.
Topic, it is.
Mike. Yeah.
But when I went into Wyoming, that's where I'm from, Wyoming County, and I went into that courthouse and saw how I was treated. And again, I don't care.
Why were you there? Why were you at the courthouse?
I was there actually at George Juhaus's court case. So
friend of the show.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
cut to me, Dan. Hi, George.
Right. So
heard you're making cheese.
So it was just I was treated so poorly, but I didn't care because I just gave it back to him. But what really bothered me, and it's the same thing that's happening here, is that these good, hardworking, honest people are being crapped on every angle at every day. And that's what why Lou and I do what we do. That's why you do what you do, because it's immoral. It's absolutely immoral. And I see when I thought my experience at that courthouse, and those poor people that come in who don't perhaps have the education or don't have the strength or the will to do that. Right.
Yeah.
So they're there walking out the door with their tails between their legs. And once again, it pissed me off. So why is why don't they want us to be better? I don't know that answer for you, but there are easy fixes to a lot of our healthcare issues today, but they just seem to walk away from it.
Have you seen a degradation in human health in the last 40 years? Overall health.
I have seen both. Like, for example, I just get a little personal, and I'm on a really weird lymphoma, and they put me on this product, and
I'll tell you some stuff after we're done.
Okay, and it literally has changed my life around. I would probably be dead without it. Uh-huh. So, but here's the kicker: it costs $15,000 a month.
What?
Yes,
for you to live.
Yes, for me to live.
What the?
Now, here's the thing: is that I'm I have health.
Oh my God!
$15,000 a month.
You're paying $15K a month.
I am not, but my insurance.
Oh, I am.
You are. Right. No,
me too.
No,
Wait a minute.
Think about that. You are. So if you're paying for your health, I mean, again, insurance companies aren't going to lose, right? So they're going to. So when you see premiums go up, you see copay goes up, you see deductibles go up. It's why does it cost $15,000? I don't understand it. So even that's that Mike. He's so what? That's his problem. No, it's not. It's society's.
It's everybody's.
Problem. It's society's problem.
Yeah, you want it, but I don't know. Look, a lot of people. Most people want to live.
Right.
Most people.
And they want to live happy. It's not just like, I want to live, and I'm on a chair, and I'm doing this kind of, but
it's quality of life
issue. Quality of life issue. Yeah. So the answer to the question, I've seen great gains, but I've also seen some simple stuff where you could look at people and say, okay, this person has this, and there's nobody helping them. They live alone. What about those kind of people that are being overlooked, or what about those kind of people that maybe it's a
let Susie suffer at home and die because she can't afford $15K.
She can't afford it.
Yeah,
right.
Let it be a slow, miserable death.
Yeah. And I was sick. I was just. My wife is an RN. RNs are not very merciful.
No, there's no. They're like my Russian wife.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, I had.
Don't be pussy.
Don't be pussy, right?
Yeah.
So, but she would say, "You look like ET," because I had lost so much muscle mass, so my head looked this big. Right? So
okay.
So that was it's a funny story, but yeah, exactly right in so many ways, and I went to a doctor there, and. There are great people again, everything. They would send me to the GI guy to see if I was having any issues there. Awesome, man. Incredible, man. They sent me to the cancer guy. He told me I was lying to him.
Oh.
So I told him to blank off, but he was wrong. So
you don't have cancer.
You don't have cancer. So, and he's the cancer guy. So here's where the problem comes in. If I didn't know what I knew, and I went back to the GI guy, he said, how'd it go? And I told him, and he said, I'm so sorry. I saw him welling up. He was so sad about what happened to me. that he sent me to his cancer person. I walked in the door and she said, "You have Waldenstrom's." As soon as
Just
I walked
like
in the door, just like that. So what if I didn't know what I knew? I was maybe a little bit passive. What is the best thing you ever want to hear when you go to the doctor concerning cancer?
You don't have
You
cancer.
don't have cancer. That's what he was telling me. So you will go home and die. So right. So this is where
Why? Like I think that's a psychopathy, and this is the thing where I'm starting to I can see both sides.
Yes.
Right. Especially during the COVID shit.
Yes.
Right. I think there's a lot of doctors in this country that are not independent doctors.
Correct.
They are employees.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you hear all the people on the side who are like, the anti-COVID people, the anti-COVID vax people.
Sure.
Are like, they should have stood up.
Right.
They should have said no. They should have did this. And it's like, how many people got the shot that wanted to say no,
Right.
but couldn't?
That
You know what I
couldn't.
mean? So
Yeah.
like, we're looking for this moral, ethical
Yes.
hero in everybody,
Yes.
and very few people have that
It's-
spark of being like, no, this is nuts.
Right. But think about how
and they're not willing to put everything on the line to stand by the thing that they believe in.
It's all about fear, isn't it?
It's all fear.
It's all fear.
Everything's fear.
It's all about driving fear. And sometimes my kids who are adults now, they'll look at me and my daughter's, "Dad, I get why you're doing it." My son's like, "I get why you're doing it, but I'd never do it."
Right.
So that's what my son said, "But I'll never do it." I said, "Well then."
But he didn't grow up in the rough and tumble South Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, there you go. Although, you know what? He did. Both my children are adopted, and he's a product of a heroin mother. So he.
Oh, that's tough.
So
was she using when she was pregnant?
She says not, but with the second child, she was. So
Okay.
I'm going to guess probably.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of emotional issues to go through. We got him when he was 7, and women have a way of seeing things that men don't.
You're absolutely right.
And so I would say he just needs to toughen up, and my wife would say he has PTSD.
Yeah.
And I think, holy crap, he does.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't for that, man-woman connection.
Somebody said to me one day, and I've repeated this God knows how many times, men and women are supposed to be different because they're complementary.
Yes, there you go.
The two together,
Yep.
just like she opened your eyes to a different point of view, you should be able to open her eyes to a different point of view. And that's why, the yin and the yang of it all is supposed to work.
Yes. I mean, I can remember years ago, she said to me, not everything is black and white. You know what? Damn it, she's right. So that's when we're talking about a really difficult subject today, that I think there are just people from all professions, from the healthcare, is that they are afraid of the repercussions of standing out and taking it. And look at the folks who did, and some of the issues they went through. They didn't go unscathed. There was repercussions for it.
It was like public social assassinations.
The Scarlet Letter, yes, here it is. Here's the badge. And you're a fool, and you're lucky you're not in jail right now. We don't take your license.
Do you want to jump to vaccines?
Yeah, let's do it.
You think? Should we not? Are we fearless, Dan?
No, let's do it.
Okay. You started in, what did you say, 1984, 85?
85.
85.
Mm-hmm.
Did only doctor's office do vaccinations, or did the pharmacist do the vaccine?
Just doctor's offices.
How many vaccines were there on the schedule for children when you started?
I would say there was probably that traditional, just like you, like 8. They got the MMRs. They got the one that wasn't there was the one to prevent uterine cancer. That was not part of it.
Did the HPV one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the normal batch was like somewhere between 7 and 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had the tetanus. Yes.
Pertussis, maybe.
Yes.
How many other now?
There sometimes, and this happened to my daughter. I was so mad when my wife called me. She was 3 years old. They gave her 8 vaccines all at one time.
In one day?
In one day.
In one day?
In one day. Yep. And I called up. I said, "What are you people doing? How can your immune system?"
What year was this?
Okay, so that would have been around the 2000.
So good, like 15 years later.
Yeah.
Right. You still remembered.
Yes.
You don't need that many.
You don't need
in
that
a day.
Many. And I walked in there. I said, "What are you people doing?" I said, "How can even if you believed in what it's doing, and how can the immune system respond to 8 vaccines all at one time and get that immunity that you're looking for?" And Well, that's what the protocol says. Well,
And-
you know what? Don't ever do that again. And she does not get another vaccine unless you okay with me first.
So how many total do you think that your daughter got? Because I know she got 8 in a day.
She got 8 in a day. Well, and then she got, I would say probably.
So she got
10.
she got basically the full round of vaccines
Yes.
in one day
Yes.
that I got in my entire childhood.
Yes.
And no one sees an issue with that?
No.
Do
I saw an issue
you
with
see
it.
an issue with
Absolutely. Yes.
that? But why does no one else?
Well, they do, but again, it goes about being
Like why don't
careful.
other doctors have an issue with that?
Because I think it goes right back to indoctrination in med schools.
How much time do you think that they spend on vaccinations in medical school?
That is a great question. I would say, and again, I'm not in med school, so I don't know that
Sure.
answer.
Did you have it when you went to med school?
Pharmacy school? But yeah,
I'm sure.
right,
I'm
yeah,
sure they
yeah.
brought it up.
They did, and there was the vaccines, but it wasn't that big. Like you must get vaccinated thing. It was like, here's the vaccine, here's what it's for. We were more based on how it worked. So it was let's find out, how this, again, we talked early on, how does this affect the body and how does the body respond to it? And so that's what it wasn't necessarily you have to get this done. Okay. It would say, here's.
If somebody walks in and wants one.
Right. And we didn't talk about the CDC. There was very little discussion of what the government wanted or suggested we do. Other than the fact you had to pass your board, that was the only government discussion. And we had pharmacy law, but it wasn't about what the government suggests we get. There was no discussion of that. Now, talking with pharmacy students who have gone through through the COVID issue, it was like, you can't go to school unless you get the COVID shot. You can't go to school unless you get the influenza shot. You can't. So there was no debate.
Who pays for those? Who pays for
as a student?
who pays every year for the flu shots?
It depends who you are. So right
Come
now,
on in and get your flu shot. Who pays for that?
the insurance companies pay for it. Okay, so if you don't have
How do the
Medicare,
insurance companies get paid to pay for that?
they get paid by premiums, or if you're Medicare, by government, by tax dollars.
So the tax dollars
taxpayers.
basically are like, get your free flu
Yeah.
shot.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
us.
Yes.
Okay.
That's us. Yes. And so
And the COVID was that way too. The COVID shots.
in the beginning, when COVID first came out, so here's how it works. A pharmacy buys influenza shots, and then they inject the people with it at a certain cost. But the insurance companies tell you what it is. So pharmacy buys it from the drug company. Okay.
Why does the insurance company tell you how much it costs? Why doesn't the
We
why
don't-
doesn't the manufacturer tell you how much it costs?
So we know how much it costs from the manufacturer, but the insurance company tells us how much they're going to pay us for it. So we, because I'll get paid. Well, like, what do you charge for this product? Do you have insurance? Yes. Well, you're going to pay the same no matter where you go. So, well, you don't have a certain price. I said the insurance company set the price on everything. I have no discussion with that at all. Even when I had my own place, I mean, I could debate it and I could ask for a different contract, and then they tell you to take a walk.
Let's talk about a vaccine that we'll just call X.
Okay.
How much? And use real numbers from something you might be familiar with.
Okay.
What is the cost from the manufacturer for X?
For X, I'm just thinking.
And how much do you get for that?
Okay, so, and now I'm not privy to that anymore because I work for a chain, but I could tell you that.
When you're in business for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do any vaccinating. I was in business for myself.
You never got.
I never became.
When did vaccines start moving into pharmacies?
Well, they did. A lot of pharmacies were doing the influenza vaccine. That was the first one to get on, but I chose not to do it. And I chose not to do it because it just seemed cumbersome. You had to put certain things in place. So I just chose not to do it. But I do know, and I'm going to use COVID as an example because I know of an independent who was putting out COVID vaccine. So when COVID first came out, the government paid for it all. So you got all your COVID vaccines. The pharmacy got all your COVID vaccines.
So when a pharmacy pays for a vaccine,
Mhm.
do they pay for like Walmart would buy like a pallet of sodas?
Sure. Right.
So you're not just getting like a vial, you're
No.
getting a whole bunch. So
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when we're talking about it in the Sam's Club price.
Right. Well,
Okay.
let's just put on. So since I don't know the prices because I'm not privy to the prices, but I kind of get sense of what the pharmacy makes on each vaccine,
Uh-huh.
and let's just say $50 that they're making
Each shot, you
each
make
shot.
$50.
Yeah, that that's with the cost already paid for. So let's just say the shot costs $100. So now you're getting $150. So you made $50. So and during the COVID vaccine, because there was 2 of them, if you remember.
Well, there was Pfizer, Moderna, J&J.
Right. And now there's some that are outside the government.
Comirnaty, well, that's AstraZeneca.
Yes.
And what is it? Comirnaty was the one that was approved, but was never injected.
Right, exactly. And what?
Just so you know, world, the approved drug was never put in anyone.
Right. No, it was not.
Isn't that weird?
That is, yes.
How the fuck does that happen?
And why does it? How and why? That's the big question.
Yeah.
But what?
This potato salad has been approved. This tastes like macaroni salad. Nope. Nope. It's potato salad.
Yep. And it's really and during the COVID, there was, if you remember, there was the first shot, and then they called it the booster. Now it's into infinity. But you would get paid, and again, I don't remember the numbers, but say $35 for the first one. That was your profit. Then you got paid $50 for the second one. So that was the incentive
to get more shots.
So, and to get that person to make sure they got the second shot. So that was, so why the incentivizing? Why? And of course, our government would say, because we needed it. Now, let's look at how effective are vaccines. Some of them are pretty darn effective. When it comes to COVID, because that's fresh in my mind, I know folks who got every vaccine there was, and they've gotten COVID over and over again. I know people who didn't get any vaccines, and they've gotten COVID several times. So what is this big push for constantly inoculating with COVID?
Could we put a pin in that? Because I got to pee.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Dan, you cool with that? Do you got to pee?
I kind of got to pee
good.
too.
We all got to pee.
Yeah.
Go
all right, we're gonna do a big. Don't stop recording.
Well, you know what I'm gonna do real quick? I'll shill while you're gone.
What?
I'm gonna shill while you're gone.
Shill?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna pause right here in the episode anyway.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
All right,
so I'm
go.
gonna clap so I know where the edit point
Okay.
is. Okay. We all peed.
Yeah, feeling better.
Take me to September, October, November of 2020, and they think that the only way out of this is this COVID vaccine that they started, I believe, to start putting in people the 2nd or 3rd week of December of 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Now,
let me give it. Yes, that's about right. Yeah.
I believe it was 2 days after the election. They said, "Hey, we got a vaccine."
Yes. Right.
How was that? Did anything bring your spidey sense up about it at the time?
Let's go back when Fauci first made the scene, and that was
Which was March.
That was
February, March.
Yeah.
I mean, the gays really knew about him in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, a little bit about. You'll have to refresh it. But yeah.
So, did you ever see this movie called The Dallas Buyers Club?
Yeah, no, I do not. But
it was with Matthew McConaughey. Won an Oscar.
Yes,
he was the gay guy looking for medicine.
Yes.
The reason he couldn't get medicine was Fauci.
It was Fauci.
And then Fauci only approved something called AZT.
Yes, now I do remember that.
Okay.
Yes.
So Fauci came into this new lexicon.
Yes.
Early 2020.
Right.
So let's go back to there.
So that's when my spider sense first went up. I remember we were still in Texas. I remember happening to be out that day. I'm there with my wife again. She's an RN, and I'm looking at that, and she said, and the things that he was saying just didn't add up to me through my experience, through my education, just the way this virus was working. And my wife said, well, what do you think? And honestly, I said, I think he's full of shit because nothing makes sense. Like he was talking about things like, for example, if you had it and how the antibodies work and how the body, nothing added up, and I can't pinpoint.
Like there's no such thing as natural immunity.
Right,
there's no
exactly,
such. Yeah,
exactly. So that's when the first thing that happened, and being in a different part of pharmacy that some pharmacists have an experience where the compounding and the natural things. It was like I know that there are things I've seen these things working, and it just seemed very insincere, and I don't think it's accurate. So that was the thing that first made me take a look. Then it was the issue with. And again, I would never try to talk anybody out of a vaccine, and I would never try to talk anybody into a vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's an individual decision. Okay, so when people would ask me, I'd say,
"So do you believe in informed consent?"
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So But when people are consenting from fear, that was concerning me. Plus the fact when you look, and being suspicious by nature, when you look at the fact of the amount of money that was being generated, and some of the things too that, oh, wait a minute, we have a vaccine that hasn't been properly tested, has never been animal tested, but you know what? Pfizer, Moderna, you're off the hook if anything goes bad.
So explain that to people. What does that mean?
What that means is
you're off the hook.
You're off the hook. So what that means is normally if a drug is produced, and there is a horrible side effect, like thalidomide babies. I'm not sure how
children on thalidomide. Yeah.
Yep. So that was a drug for nausea,
and it gave that was like flipper babies.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, where you didn't have fully grown legs or hands or arms. I mean,
or arms.
Yeah.
Right. So they're now responsible for that. Okay. So I can't tell you what happened to the company that made that, but there was responsibility. So essentially, they're saying to the Pfizers and the Modernas of the world that, look, if something like that happens, we have no recourse against you, and nobody else has any recourse against you. It means we can't sue you. It means we can't hold you responsible. It means we can't.
And it means the people that you injured can't sue you.
Correct.
Now you knew that early on.
Yes.
And why should somebody be skeptical or at least be like, whoa, wait, something's going on here when you find out that the thing that you're supposed to be doing, there is no legal recourse in case things go wrong? Like, what other things is that for? Like, what other things can harm you that you can't sue somebody for?
Right. So if you're driving a brand new car and they find out that the braking system doesn't work and your family member gets killed because you can't stop,
you can't sue Ford.
You can't sue Ford. So to me, there's no difference to that. So what happens is, what gives Ford the incentive to make sure their product is safe? Because they're on the hook, or they are responsible for bad outcomes. When you look at these manufacturers, Pfizer, Moderna, because they're the most common, they had no fear of that. So maybe and again, I'm just making scenarios that maybe that little test right there, and it isn't exactly the result we wanted, but we're just going to push that one aside. I mean, that's the incentive when you're not held responsible for anything to do those kind of things.
Yeah, think about how much money we can get, and there's no consequences.
Am I saying that was done? I don't know. But
it's true.
It's true. Yeah. So where is everybody should be held responsible for their behavior?
So your first spidey sense was like, wait a second, no one's responsible in case this thing goes south.
Correct. And then not only, but there was so many spidey senses. Was why are we? We go back to hydroxychloroquine. Why are we saying things about these safe drugs and you're saying they're not safe? We know they're safe. They've been used forever. Why? So if they, they being the government, came out and said, well, you know what? We've tested hydroxychloroquine in the lab on 100 patients and blah, blah, and there is no results to this. And here's the bad side effects. There was none of that. Because why? Because there was nothing there. One, they didn't do any studies that I'm aware of on how effective hydroxychloroquine was. And second of all, they didn't show any evidence of this being a life-threatening medication if you were taking for other than autoimmune disease. There was no results of that. So when you start to look at the things we were being told and the things that I knew to be true, it wasn't adding up. So it was really bothering me that people were so, in all my life, I don't think I've ever seen people so panicked. And I mean, I lived through the 72 flood here, in Agnes, and I was in 72.
9/11.
I never saw anybody so fearful than such a mass part of our population. And I believe that was partially by design, because and here comes the conspiracy, but let's see how we can control people through fear. Well, it was evident, and I don't know if that was the reason, but and I have asked, if you,
there's examples through history, right?
Well, I'm sure there is. I don't,
I'll give you a really great one.
Yeah.
Goebbels was?
Yes. Yep. As a matter of fact, I was just going to say that. I know which one you're going to talk about. Yes.
Yes.
How
did you do it? How did you get other people to go along?
Right.
It was easy.
It was
fear.
Yes. And then what they did also was fear was causing people to get it, and then anger and demonizing those people who dared to question.
Right.
So, what is science? One of the best part and he kept talking about science. Science is intended to question, not to question. If I have a whole group of people over here saying, wait a minute, we need to take another look at this, and you say, you're un-American. Why are they un-American? You want to silence them for what? Is there something we need to hear from this group of people that you're unwilling to let us hear? And so that, to me, should have.
They weren't people on the corner, just spouting shit. They were, cardiologists, epidemiologists,
right,
evolutionary biologists,
yes,
who are all talking about these things. People who have seen thousands of COVID patients who are saying like, whoa,
right,
and anyone who went against it were the ones who were chastised and degraded and loss of life and social stature and
how do how do you turn people against this group of people? You demonize them, and unfortunately, I think we live in a culture today that we don't question anything. It's like whatever I'm told, I'll just get in line and I'll do.
Which is not the way to do it.
It's not the way.
It's the opposite of the way to do it.
It is the opposite.
That's it. That's how you become a lemming.
Yes. And when I look at the fact that what they were calling radicals, well, then I guess you can call Jesus Christ a radical. I guess you can call our founders radicals. But they were people that dared to question. And and again, my observation is questioning was not an option. You were supposed to back off of that. So it's
that's scary.
It is scary. So it's how do we control people? Well, if you don't get this, you're going to die. If you don't get this, your child's going to die.
If you don't get this, you're going to kill your grandparents.
You're going to kill your grandparents. Yes. Constantly. So my question that I kept bringing up, and sometimes I am bold and I just can't help it, but I said, because there was, and I had seen it, like, why? What's wrong with those people? They're not going to get the shot. And I would say, why are you concerned about it? If you're getting the shot, you're protected, right? Oh, yeah. So why does it concern you what they choose to do with their bodies?
What a great question.
Yeah. So why are you so? And
the answer back was always angry.
There was no answer. There was sometimes it was like, oh, whatever. No, think about it. Then you just stop. I mean, there's a point where, and this would be out socially.
What did I see? I saw a meme where it was like, I'm going to have sex with this girl. Please put that condom on. You're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Make any sense. Exactly.
I heard somebody say the other day, they're scientists, and they said science should not be aha. It should be, that's funny.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Instead of like the eureka moment, it should be like, that doesn't make sense. That's science.
Right.
Science are the things that don't make sense.
Right. And look at the things that have changed through the years that we look at differently. For example, the way we look at cancer is different. We're coming up with, I believe at some point in time, chemo will be considered like bloodletting or using leeches like we did in the past.
I'm going to push back on you a little bit on this one because it's really weird how to get better we have to poison ourselves.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. No,
I think there's always a better way.
Right. Exactly.
And I've gone down some rabbit holes, which I will share with you after this.
Okay.
And you could decide for yourself if I'm a crazy person or if the people I'm sending you are nuts.
Right. Well, and here's what, and you keep saying crazy person. Who's deciding who's crazy?
I don't know. I just say it. I shouldn't have said that.
Right. Well,
I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. And it's just, so when I look at, and the reason I brought that up was when you look at the government telling us who we should trust and distrust, the very people telling who we should distrust are the people we should distrust.
Right.
It's like what happened to, I'm blessed where I live up in the country and we have great neighbors, but guess what? If something goes bad, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
We're there to help each other, not to demonize and not to take, but, example, I had a neighbor wanted to borrow my tractor and I said, excuse me, it's dirty. It's been in with the chicken barn. It's filthy. He borrowed my tractor and washed it.
That's why it was nice to have neighbors and neighborhoods. And you're a community.
You're a community, and he said, I just want to put fuel in. I said, don't worry about it. So his payment was, I'm not taking this for nothing. I'm washing your tractor.
That's the kindness of the people around you.
Right.
You know, that blood is thicker than water is not about your family. It's about the people that you choose to have in your life.
Exactly.
Talking about like when you were just saying like the government are the ones telling you who to trust and who not to trust. What's my famous quote? My famous question that I ask people about lying.
Oh, you keep asking me this and I keep forgetting, but I do know it.
How many times do I have to lie to you before you don't believe me?
Yes. Or how many times do I lie to you that you start to believe me?
I mean, that's a scary one.
Yeah.
That's a scary one.
Yes. You know,
and that's the loss of critical thinking.
Yes, it is the loss of critical thinking. You know, I have, he's 22 years old and I believe that if you want a gun, you should have a gun. I support the Second Amendment. That's what I believe.
Teach him young.
Yeah, teach him young. But he was in college and he was falling into the alternate opinion. And I said to him, here's what I want you to do. Anytime you read an article, I want you to know who that author is, and I want you to research the author and find out what their agenda is, because that's usually the deciding factor. So he came and said, well, all these shootings in the schools, and it's horrible, and I think we should stop this, and blah, blah. I said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go and Google up how many lives were saved
from
handguns. Came back an hour later.
Millions.
He said, Dad, I can't believe what I just read. I said, this is what I'm trying to tell you. So does that have anything to do with healthcare we're talking about? No, but it has to do with the critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Question everything.
Who's telling you this and why?
Correct. Exactly.
When they started rolling out the vaccines, did you, and obviously we don't want to violate HIPAA. We don't want to do any of that stuff. Did you start seeing weird things happening
far as
I guess you would have evidence of seeing weird things by what people would come in and say is wrong with them and what prescriptions they would need in the years since.
Okay, so are you saying weird things because of the vaccine or just?
I'm not saying it's because of the vaccine. Okay. I'm just saying that did anything strange happen in cultural health or societal health that you were like, that's funny.
Right.
That's weird.
In 2021, you're like, wait, I didn't see this in like 2010.
Right. Well,
or 2019.
And here was one that was and I was in particular when a mom was telling me that her 35-year-old son had just had a heart attack and no symptoms prior to that. So, and it wasn't a heart attack. It was his heart stopped. I had another fellow who was a physician speaking with his younger physician, just talking about whatever, here's what we're going over with this patient. Boom, that young doctor just fell right on his face. Unfortunately, they did CPR and got him into the emergency room. He survived, and then they sent him home the same day. I can't forget that one, but he was he back?
Looks good to me.
Right. Yeah.
Don't get sick, folks.
Right. So he was, he took the vax. Do we have evidence that has anything to do with it? I think that evidence is starting to show. But what is really concerning me is not what's happening today. What's going to be happening in 5-10 years from now is are young ladies becoming infertile? I don't know that, but is it possible? What I've been reading, maybe. Is it, this water that you gave me in the plastic bottle actually holds possible estrogen, which is
from the plastic,
from
right?
The plastic, yes. So maybe that's why we're seeing cultural changes in the sexes. I don't know, but I do know that there are things that should be being questioned. Have I seen anything personally? No, other than what parents might be telling me or
but do you see like prescriptions coming in for things where it's like that wouldn't have been a problem a year
right
in other words, like
right.
Like I would never see that, or the frequency of it, because I'm hearing things such as from the hospitals around here that let me think of one that I just heard the other day. Pulmonary emboli, is that bleeding in your lungs?
Pulmonary emboli is a blood clot in the lungs.
Okay.
Yes.
So a nurse I know said the other day, she said, usually we would see 1 to 3 of these a year.
Okay.
And now we're seeing 1 to 3 a week.
A week. Okay. Yes.
Is that a signal? Like, what is?
It would be a signal now.
But like, so for those things, what would you see an uptick in prescriptions for things like that?
That's more of an acute thing. So the only thing I would is the uptake, I would say, is a blood thinner. They're sent home on a blood thinner to prevent the clot from occurring. So, do we use probably more blood thinners than we ever have? But that was occurring pre-COVID as well, because now they're using it. I don't know if you remember the term Coumadin or warfarin.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
Coumadin,
old
yeah.
one. So we don't see as much of that. We see some of the newer products that cost $500 or more. But I'm not, to honestly, no, I don't see anything that's really stepping out and say, hey, we're using more.
Is it also that you live in a place where a lot of them are like, I ain't getting that shit?
Well, it is. It is. And you know what really bothers me is like,
that could be.
Well, I mean, there are people that would condemn them for that, but they have that right to say, I'm not doing it. Here is something which really proves the point.
Gentlemen, you say that and then I'll tell you something.
Okay. A gentleman came in, 90 years old, straight as could be, straight, tall, mind, just like you were 20 years old. I said to him, what is your secret? And he said to me, if I didn't grow it, if I didn't raise it, I don't eat it.
Really?
Yes. So he was up on the farm, and so that's what it was. He raised his own meat. He made his own. He might go out and buy a thing of bread or something, but I thought, wow, and there's the evidence. There is the evidence that he is. And I know when we were raising beef and stuff, and of course I was younger then, but I really felt better from those things. So here is something that we have to look and, maybe there's more serious things as our food sources.
Somebody said to me, they say, if you see an advertisement for it, don't eat it.
There you go.
Yep. I want to stick on vaccines for a few minutes with you. What is in vaccines?
Okay. So
what's in COVID? What's in the COVID vaccine specifically? Did you get a insert?
No. Wait, and I wish I had brought it with me. So
do you know about this?
No.
So, you don't know about this?
No.
Okay. So every drug that you get, you will pull out an insert and it tells you everything about it. I mean, it is long and extensive. In both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, when you pull out that insert, guess what you see? Intentionally left blank. That, the writing on intentionally left blank. To this day, there is nothing on it.
To this day?
Yes.
3 years later.
Yes. So they tell that they were going to start, but it's very. So that's part of not being responsible, right? That's part of not being held.
But shouldn't that be like a big red flag for everybody to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa?
Yes.
No one should take this if we don't know what's in it.
Right. So in that, what's traditionally in that insert? How it's made, what's in it, what the side effects are, what the repercussions could be. And
it's like the size of like an old school road atlas.
Yeah,
it's huge.
It's like scriptures from the Bible. You know what I mean? They're like that. And it's 3% experience this side effect, 4% experience this side. None of that. Zero. One, in the beginning, they had no time because they just created this thing. And now they should be able to have the evidence to start writing these things in it, but we're not getting it. So it'll be interesting to see. Now there's a slowdown, so we don't see. But when they start rolling out the new stuff for the fall, then we'll see if it's in there. But
are you holding your breath after 3 years? You're gonna be like, oh, now they're gonna put some.
No.
You think they're actually gonna release that Comirnaty?
I don't. But they haven't yet. So why should they?
But that's for people to realize, they approved A,
right,
and they've been giving you B.
Yeah, right. Well, and what did they approve? So
that's
here
new technology.
Or new technology. So here's the interesting part, and this was another thing you asked me a while back. Where did the spiders go? The
Spidey sense.
Spidey sense. It's like, okay, so this vaccine is 90% effective. How do you know that? You haven't tested it on anybody. The only test was actually getting it. How do you know it's that effective?
Well, they had a placebo group and a vaccine group,
right?
And I believe it was maybe June to September of 2020.
Okay. Yep.
And they unblinded the placebo group.
Yes.
So there is no data on anything.
Correct.
So it's all crap.
It's all crap.
And they wanted to sequester it for 75 years.
Yes.
And not show the public what their data was.
Yes.
And the data that's come out has been terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
And that's, imagine if we got all the data. So we're getting the data that somehow is getting out there, somehow that will out. But so any drug that's made out, like for example, if you have just a regular medication and 10 years being on the market, another side effect shows up, they have now got to change that whole package insert. It's called a package insert to show that. So yet there's been changes in evidence of things on this, but we still don't see it. And that was
How can anybody, like, that's the thing that's been baffling me the whole time. How can anybody feel comfortable with either injecting that or receiving it?
Right.
Like how could a nurse or how could a pharmacist or because like they're giving them at fucking McDonald's now. Like that's basically how can they do that without saying, hey man, I looked at the package insert and it literally says blank.
As it literally says blank. Because they just don't care. I just think that they
like how, but how are there like employees or nurses or pharmacists or doctors or anybody who's like, there's nothing here for me to say whether or not this is safe. I'm going off faith,
right? And that question is really valid. Here's what concerns me as a healthcare provider. So Pfizer and Moderna are exempt from anything going bad. If it goes bad, not their responsibility. Am I?
As a
pharmacist, am I exempt?
I never even thought of that.
That I give you the vaccine, and yet there's nothing on this paper. Why would you give that to me?
I never knew that.
I don't know. Maybe the government.
Oh, did you get it?
I think so.
That's it. Can you pull that up on the thing?
No, I'm not going to today.
Well, how are we going to see it?
Well, just so you guys could see it. You could.
So we're looking at right now the entire package insert, which I think. I mean, Mike. Roll with me here. It's probably like 4 foot, 5 foot wide.
Yeah.
By like 3 foot high.
Yeah, they actually slimmed it. Yeah, that particular one is probably when you pull it out, it's probably 8 by.
It's
12.
huge.
It's huge.
It's like a map of America when you're driving cross country.
Right.
And what's it say in the middle there?
In like
intentionally left blank.
Yes.
In like a 10-point font.
Yes. Yes. And it's really interesting because if you ask people that, and I'm glad you brought it up because nobody knows that. And I've had discussions with people who, healthcare people, say, well, aren't you uncomfortable with that? And they didn't even know there was nothing on that, on the package insert. I said, there's nothing there. So how can we be expected to make appropriate decisions if there's nothing there? And, the light bulb kind of went on, but again, it's the fear factor. Again, it's, and now a lot of docs, they're not doing vaccines anyway. So they're kind of off the hook with it in the sense that most vaccines are being done everywhere, but in the doctor's office. So, there's very few.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Isn't that where it's supposed to get done?
That's where it all started. As a matter of fact, it was really interesting when they first started to do vaccinating in
They're
pharmacies.
doing Chuck E. Cheese now.
Yeah. Well, and here's, you want to talk about waste. When it first came out, it was in a multi-dose vial. So that meant if there was, say, 7 doses in there, and I only used 1 dose because that's all I had, the other 6 doses got thrown in the trash.
At the beginning of the doses.
Yes. So
that's a loss of what? 70%?
Yes.
80%?
Right. So who's paying for that?
We are.
Yeah. So now what's happened is since it now comes in a unit dose. So it's already in a pre-measured syringe and you just screw a needle on it and you put it in. So there's a little bit improvement with that, but still the not millions, but I believe billions of wasted vaccine that was just being thrown in the trash.
That we paid about $60 billion for.
Right.
Can I ask you like a logistical question?
Yeah.
Two-parter. How many medicines per year made by these companies are now are taken off the shelves? You're no longer allowed to. We found it dangerous.
I can't recall any in the last.
There's been no medicine where they're like, we can't use that anymore?
I'm trying to think. Yes. Maybe in the last 15 years. There's a product called Vioxx.
Oh, Vioxx. Yes. Well, they lied super duper about that. That killed over 100,000 people.
It did. It caused cardiac issues and it killed them.
Who made that?
That was Merck. Merck Sharp and Dome, which has now been bought. Merck is still around, but that was made by Merck. I can't believe I still remember that, but it was made by Merck. So you've had that product. There's been, I wish I could remember, but there have been a couple that they say they were taken off the market because they were found to be ineffective. So there's 2 things that to really basic is to get drug to market. It has to be safe and effective. Okay.
Who defines that?
Well, through testing. So you know that big sheet we're talking about?
Yeah.
That shows all the tests on it. Now, one of the things you have to, if you really want to get, is like who's doing the testing and who is deciding what the results are showing us. Okay, but at least
that's important because important, yeah. Who's paying for the tests?
Right.
Who pays for the pharmaceutical tests?
So if the drug company is not,
do you know? Well, you have to know
who's paying for the.
Yeah, who pays for the tests?
Well, as far as getting a drug to market, okay. Well, the drug company should be paying for it. So doesn't that concern you? Is that yeah?
Doesn't it?
Right. So
this is good.
Yeah. So yeah, this is
trust
good.
us.
Right. You know, and there's nothing with asking questions and being untrusting because we should be. You know, it just you know, people are.
It's kind of like the American thing to do.
It is, but think about some of the things in our culture. It's like I got to have organic milk for my kids, but get them vaxxed. You know, and I'm not here to tell you.
It does seem like a contradictory philosophy.
So we really want so I don't, and I'm not telling anybody out there not to get vaxxed. I'm just telling you it's always good
to question.
Yeah. You know, now there's things like my organic milk turned out it wasn't organic. It was coming from some other place. You know, I mean, so we're so worried about stuff like that, and I'm okay with that. But let's worry about the things that are being put into our bodies as well.
Yeah. Well, because there's no test. There's no test for me. There's no blood test I can give that said that I had the chickenpox vaccine. There's no test that I can take that said I had MMR or was it DTP?
There is a test that they could do to see if there's still antibodies in your body from that. So
yeah, but that could be from a previous infection.
It could be, and we definitely don't know that. So I mean,
it could be. Mike, this seems like one of those sciences where it's like we really don't know, like, and we're hedging all of our bets on it. And we really don't know.
We really don't. My wife is an example where she had to have, I believe it was hepatitis B because of nursing. And it's a 3-shot series. She got all done with them. She had no titer. They call it titers. She had nothing that showed that she got that vaccine. So then, yeah, right. So now they say, well, the immune system
safe.
Right.
Okay, so that does that take away the effective part?
It sure does. It's safe because it's not.
It's safe because she didn't die,
right? And
but
then,
it's not effective,
right? And then there's now she had to do it again, and she eventually tested her titer went up. But there's also a thing called SARS, where if there's a bad result to a vaccine, we're supposed to do that. VAERS, I'm sorry.
The Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System.
Yeah. So that's supposed to be done if there's an issue. But there was so many times that I had talked to that if there was an issue, they weren't being documented.
You talked to people who didn't document VAERS reports.
I had spoke to
about the COVID
and this
vaccine.
was back in Texas about the not about the COVID. Well, yeah, that people will get the COVID vaccine and they will come in like a weird side effect that. They said they couldn't pinpoint it to the vaccine, so it just wasn't done. But it should have been done. So, but would it have mattered? I don't know. I don't know if it would have mattered.
Well, it wouldn't have hurt.
It wouldn't have hurt. But here's what's happening is that during that COVID, that everybody, ERs were packed, clinics were packed. And now you were supposed to stop the world and report this. Well, I'll get to that later. Nobody remembers to get to that later. So I think, and I even see in my industry that the more and more they're putting on healthcare because we're police officers because we have to watch for people getting drugs other places out. You know, we're clinics now. I believe that in pharmacies because we're already doing COVID tests that we're going to start seeing pharmacies doing flu tests and say, okay, you got a flu test, and the government now allows us to say you had the flu, and we can write a prescription as pharmacists to give you an antiviral. So, and I believe that we're going to start seeing more testing in pharmacies, and even being able to treat them at that location. So that because healthcare is getting so overwhelmed, and
but why?
Well, think
was it before?
Think about what's occurred since COVID. One, you're having less people going to healthcare because they saw the craziness that was going on in COVID. You know, we were
but
but
the stories I heard, it didn't make sense to me that like why is healthcare like why is it going to take me 6 months to get an appointment from today?
Okay, so think about the millions of people, you can call them illegal aliens or migrants, whatever you want. So now that is
let's go with what they really are: illegal aliens.
Right?
Yeah.
So illegal. So they're illegal. So, but guess what? They're
citizens.
taxing a bunch of things. They're taxing the healthcare system like crazy. So now all of a sudden, why? Somebody has to take care of them. So many times the clinics are.
So you're
full.
saying that our healthcare system is getting taxed because anywhere between 7 and 20 million illegal aliens came into this country, and are now looking for healthcare.
Yes,
and they're giving it to them.
And think of the demographics of it. They come from third world countries, so I'm sure they're not free of medical issues. Hispanic, there's a large portion of diabetic issues. It's just genetic. So there's a lot of expense that we're doing in healthcare. So there's a clinic that I heard in Wilkes-Barre that see a lot of, I don't know if they're illegal or not, but they're definitely not originally from
non-native NEPA people.
Correct. So what kind of gets you is that they're being taken care of on the tax dollar. So now all of a sudden you have this much health care, and now the patients just expanded this much. And who's going to take care of it?
Why would they allow this to happen?
There's another question.
You know what I mean? Like, why?
Right. Because,
I have a question quick.
Yeah.
I hope you ask questions, Dan. Ask as many as you'd like.
So the government that said we can't go to Canada to get cheaper prescriptions is okay with other people coming here.
Right.
Okay.
Good question. Good.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. It's weird.
So that's where I look and I tell people,
I mean, isn't that strange?
Yes. But what is in my opinion, what is the main function of government?
I always thought it was protection and a monetary system.
Okay. So are they doing any one of them well?
No.
So now you've got and
objectively no.
And so you've got all the illegal aliens coming in, plus you have an aging population. This is the perfect storm. That we're just going to see, and then you begin to wonder, why are medications becoming unaffordable? I don't know. Maybe you don't want to treat them. I have no idea. But we're virtually heading this perfect storm, and it's not getting any better.
Why is nobody like? You and I probably think we know why.
Right.
But why isn't anybody being like, hey, this is a problem. Right. We need to fix it. Are they not wanting to fix it because they'll feel bad?
Well, let's take a look at how do you get in med school today? How do you get in? So there was a thing called MCATs, very stringent test to get in. Some med schools have chosen not even to give the test, and those that are giving the test are lessening it to make it less difficult to get in.
So people don't feel like shit when they fail their test?
I think there's a couple. That's one. Of course, there's that. They're calling it a race issue, but
because testing is racist. Remember,
testing is racist. Yeah.
Oh.
So, and yet, yeah. So are we getting quality people? See, I don't know.
Racist or not, it's going to kill people.
It's going to kill people. Yes.
Yeah. It's like.
So, one of the interesting parts is that I was reading an article from a black physician, and he was so against it because everybody was questioning his credibility. You got in because you didn't have to take a test, or you got in because you're black. And he said, I'm a good physician, but everybody thinks that maybe I'm not because I was given the low bar.
That's I hear people ask that of students. I think Crowder did one of those. He's like, do you feel like you made it on your own, or do you feel like you made it because they gave it to you?
Right.
So like that ownership and the pride that you would have of accomplishing that, you don't know if it's honest.
You don't know if it's honest. Yes. And even if you did, you still have that suspicion, people saying, yeah, they're there because they got the easy way. But yes or no, if we're lowering the standards in something so as important as medicine, are we doing to get more people in because they see the coming crisis? I don't know. So it's really, and like you said, there was, if you want to see a dermatologist today, you got like 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
To see anybody. If you want to see, and being in healthcare, and it saddens me because will go back to the fact that there are people that are not being taken care of because they don't know they need to be taken care of. They can't afford the healthcare. They can't afford the copays. They can't afford they just can't afford it. So they just don't do it. And I can remember one lady in my when I had the pharmacy, and this lady came in. I said, ma'am, you need to have your nose taken care of. It was literally rotting off her face. It was cancer.
Right.
So, like, no one saw that. Nobody, and I could tell you stories like that all the time. They just don't know. They come from a tough brood of people. It'll get better. I'll put some gauze on it. I'll do something. You know, and
this is like across the board thing though, because like for me personally, like I used to have sinus polyps, right? And they grew so much that it went up in the cavity. This is kind of gross for you, but it went back into like the top of my throat even by the time I had them removed.
Wow.
I lived with them for like 3 years. I learned how to drink differently, how to eat differently. I snored all the time. I learned how to breathe. Like I learned how to operate differently because I knew there was no way that at that time in my life I couldn't afford to go to a hospital and like.
Well, that was going to be my question to you. Why did you wait 3 years?
Because I couldn't.
You couldn't afford it.
I couldn't afford it. I could barely afford the food and stuff and rent for my family. So I wouldn't go to the doctor.
But our government is taking our tax dollars to pay for folks who've never lived in this country. And this is what gets me so passionate. It goes all the way back to like, I hate the bully. And I see our government as being the bully. You know, we're going to tell you what to do. And we're going to, when I look at my quality of life and what I was able to accomplish, and I look at the opportunity, my daughter, who will be 26, says, Dad, I'll never afford a house. I'll never be able to get one. Because but
it seemed like that dream slipped away like at COVID.
Right. It does seem that way. I don't know if the radars all went up. I'm not really sure, but it really, I could kind of see it coming because I could see, you know, where a lot of.
It seems like whatever it was, like whatever the current was running towards.
Right.
Seemed like it went super speed.
It did. It was exponentially increased. Yes.
And there was a lot of people who were really smart who were like, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Right.
And none of those people were listened to.
Right. You know, and it's when you look at, you know, people losing their jobs during COVID, and I love this. It's and sometimes we critical thinking. I think of this administration saying, oh, we created more jobs in our first 4 years than anywhere else. They were the same jobs that were lost during COVID. He didn't create anything.
No, they just came back.
They just came back. You know,
I just downloaded this. I hope I saved it. This is a crazy thing about jobs. I did not. Anyways,
but so
all of the new jobs over like the last year have all been illegal. They're not Americans.
They're not. No. And this is what, and a lot of things too, is that even when we had a lot of jobs, because, you know, you want to talk about another healthcare issue when the majority of our medications are not made in this country. Think about it, they're coming from China. And so if China wants to get us, we're just cutting off your medicine.
Well, they're putting mercury in teddy bears and stuff like that.
Right. So why would you possibly trust an arch enemy to make our medications?
That's dumb.
It's really dumb. It's really dumb.
But we can't so people like everyday citizens, people like you, we're trapped.
We're trapped. Right.
We have nowhere to turn.
Right.
We are forced to take these, or we have to, or a lot of us have to figure out, you know, whatever the homeopath stuff is. Correct. Or whatever. It's like, you know, I'm making dandelion tinctures.
Yeah. Right.
You know, that's what I'm doing.
My daughter got me a book for Christmas, and it said The Forgotten Ways. And it's a book about,
it's like our great grandparents stuff.
Yes. And here's, you know, just to give back, this is when I still had my own place. There was if you're familiar with a drug called omeprazole, which is the same as Prilosec.
Okay. But it was stomach, right?
Yeah. It asks for reflux, you know. So we received.
Wasn't Prilosec taken off because it was hurting people?
No, that was Zantac.
Zantac.
That was
Zantac. Okay.
But we got a new generic in. And I had multiple complaints from patients, and it was made in India. Multiple complaints. I felt it was worth calling the FDA. So I called it up, and I said, "Ma'am, we seem to have an issue here. You know, I'm concerned. This is not one person. This is probably 15, 20 people." And she said, "Well, there's nothing in our studies here that show there's any issues with this product."
No.
Yes. And I said, "Well, ma'am, I'm telling you there's an issue with this product." And I said, "Let me ask you this. How often do you get over there to do an inspection in that warehouse?" "Well, we do it like every 4 years." Okay, wait. Okay. I said, "How much notice do they get?" "Oh, they get like a 12-month notice."
Oh.
I said, "Ma'am, I can clean anything up in 12 months. And I said, "And let me guess. How's that work for American companies? We can go in there anytime we want." And I said, "So in other words, you're screwing over our good American companies."
Yes.
Oh, she was not happy with that response.
Too bad.
And I said, well, man, there's no way of saying it. I said, I have a product here that I know is inferior. And every day, and there were some great generic companies out there that were American made, and they're gone. They're gone because the reimbursement had gotten so low and the pharmacies were asking for less and less prices that we can't make it for that much in America, because we have regulations which drive up costs, so, and we should, I mean, there should be some type of cleanliness or that, your standards of what you're using. But we don't necessarily know if that's happening in foreign countries. We don't know what's happening there, and we're not looking for it. So it's scary to see where our healthcare is going. And because they keep putting less and less into it and expecting healthcare providers to get paid less and less for it, that it's becoming, to me, a big snowball. It's about to roll down the hill because we're just not paying attention.
So tell me what you think is going to happen if the boat stays the course.
If the boat stays in healthcare, particularly?
In healthcare, particularly. Okay. And the trickle-down effects will happen to human beings, but
right,
in healthcare particularly, what is going to happen?
Here is my crystal ball. You're going to see longer lines at pharmacies because now we're not just going to be dispensing medicines, and that's our expertise, right? So I would say, I want to be able to spend time with my customer to talk about their medications. But now you just see a little bit of blips of it. You're seeing vaccinating. Then I believe we're going to start being turned into little health clinics. You're going to test and treat because there's no place else to put them. So now all of a sudden that 15-minute wait might be a 2-day wait. It may be, again, you can't throw so much more patients at a system that is only created for the system, for the amount of patients we have today. Like you said, millions of people. So at the pharmacy, they're going to get longer. Your wait time at the doctors, and when I say wait time, I think your appointment that you might be a 1 month will now be a 10-month wait. So, and that's why if you're looking, you see a lot of urgent cares
popping up.
It's the services, because even if you call your doctor today and say, I have a sinus infection, I think I need to be seen. Well, go to the urgent care. They're not having you come in. Go to the urgent care, and then they'll take care of it because they don't have the time there to do it. So now and believe me, I've been to urgent cares, and they were pretty competent. They were very good. But you look up in Wyoming County, we don't have an emergency room. Like, we have urgent cares, but they're not emergency rooms. My wife worked at Tyler Hospital as an ER nurse. That's gone. So there's Guthrie has now taken over Tyler, but there's no emergency room. So now that you have to travel 45 minutes to an hour to get to an emergency room. So that's very scary.
Meanwhile, Scranton has 4.
Right. Yeah. So but the emergency rooms aren't being used for emergency rooms. They're being used for people coming in. I've talked to someone who was had gone to a hospital in Wilkes-Barre, and they were in an emergency room for 8 hours. That's how long they had to wait. Why? Immigrants coming in, they've got cough and cold, they've got things that should be seen, not in an emergency room. And to be honest with you, some of our, born and raised American citizens use the emergency room inappropriately. You don't go in because you're constipated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so, unless there's something seriously going on there. But so I really am concerned with the huge influx of new patients coming into our healthcare system that we are not prepared to treat. So, and I see and you see it now, longer wait times for everything, and you're going to consider long wait times, and then sometimes you just don't get taken care of. And this
I mean, isn't that like a recipe for not only human suffering, but American suffering? And
yes, and what American suffering, and what has the government done? They made it worse. We can't, we every time we turn around, I feel like, I've got Big Brother watching me every day. It's like, I know how to help some of these people, but I can't, so it's, I would know where to maybe send them, but I can't, so it's all those restrictions that the government continues to put on every industry, not just healthcare. But I always say, just let us free and let us do what we know how to do. Get out of our way. Because every time you get in our way, you just make it worse. And you see that through COVID, you know, they created this hysteria for everybody. And instead of filling prescriptions, we're vaccinating, you know, and it got, and then what happens when healthcare folks are overwhelmed? Mistakes happen. It's inevitable. You know, it's because you're trying to do so much over a period of time that it becomes overwhelming, and you're doing your best, but you know, it becomes inevitable that you're going to make a mistake. And then the lawyers come in and you have that. So, but I think that the feds are really creating a mess. I think we're going to see the mess, and it's going to be, I hope that I'm capable of helping as many as I can in as many resources that we're allowed.
Oh, you're looking at it like, I don't even know if I'll be able to keep up helping people.
Yeah. Right.
Seriously.
Yeah. I really do. It's very concerning to me. It's very concerning. You know, I can see, you know, in the same scenario that I gave in the courthouse, how people were so mistreated, and it really made me angry. I'm just seeing that in our healthcare system. I'm just seeing it. People I know that really need to be seen, and then they can't get there to be seen. So it's just, it's
do you know anybody who's got enough cojones to come talk to us about it that is in a different field than pharmacy?
I'll ask around. I'll see. I don't know if they do. You know,
I'd love to get that private practice doctor who's like,
right,
here's what's going on, man.
It is, and you know, they're fearful too. I'm tired of being fearful. I'm sure you're tired of being. It's exhausting. It is exhausting.
It's no way to live, man.
No, it isn't. It is no way to live.
You don't want to live every day being the gazelle on the plane waiting for the lion to kill you.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So this is where, you know, you see people who are starting to see that. You see what's really, really interesting is that I was working, she's not working with us, but a young gal who's 21, 22. And she said, nobody's voting for this president in my age group again. I said, what? Well, it's unfortunate, but they're mad because they didn't get their school loans paid for. But
I'm still all on board for that.
Yeah. I'm sure. But
I'm happy I paid for your school loans.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but the whole point of that is that, well, I'm not total agreement of why they don't want to vote for him again, but at least they're thinking for the first time, you know. So it's is this a group of people who have now, you would expect to think one way and now are thinking another?
I think, you know, a lot of people over the last few years, I think whatever veil they had in front of them was ripped off.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of people, I think I'm one of the ones who is just, you know, la-di-da. And then someone's like, and I'm like, ah!
Yes.
What's going on?
Yes.
Fuck.
Yeah. And you know, and because I'm much older than you, but you know, when I look at when I was right out of pharmacy school and where I am today, it's terrifying to me because I can see healthcare is unaffordable. It's not available many times. And it was so awesome 40 years ago that, you know, people, for example, they've taken things away from us that we can't use. If somebody came in with diarrhea, we were allowed to give them Paregoric. Okay, they had a sign for it. It was a controlled substance, but it worked. It was awesome. Took that off my sources of things to give patients. Quinine, which is great for leg cramps. Took that away from us. That's not available to give to patients anymore. I mean, I can go on with more lists, but
but these are things that are not like harmful.
These are again quinine
because we want to use the patented medicine that we can continue to make money on.
Okay, to give you an example, the quinine. Quinine, you can get a bottle of 100 for probably about, at the time, and that was 15 years ago. You could probably get a bottle of 100 for under $10. So they took that off the market. So one company came in and said, okay, and they took it off because they said the proper studies weren't done on it. The thing is 200 years old. You know, I mean, I think we know whether it's safe or not. Okay. So another company comes out and they do the studies. That bottle went from $10 to $400.
That's the move.
And it became a prescription. And there you go. So
son of a bitch.
Yeah. So these are things that my tools are being taken away from me every day that I can possibly go out and say, okay, let's use this. This is work. This is effective. If it doesn't work, make sure you see your doctor, blah, 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 blah.
How do you, and we'll start wrapping this up, but how can average everyday people navigate this where they don't want to be corrupted or forced to adhere to like whatever the insurance companies say or the pharmaceutical companies. Like, why can't we trust our pharmacists and our doctors to have an opinion on the best way to help us?
Correct.
Using any means necessary.
Any means necessary, yes. And
so how do we correct that? Besides shaking the Etch-a-Sketch and going back to 1775.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think what happens is they've kept us so busy.
Afuera!
Yeah, right. So busy that we don't have time. But I spoke to a couple congressmen, state congressmen, and my question was this. When I come to you as a constituent and I say blah, do you really care? And they said, oh, yeah, makes a huge difference because we need to know what you're thinking. How many, like if you look at the Tunkhannock School District school board meeting,
kind of a shit show.
Nobody shows up. But here's why. Because I stood up one day and I said, look, I'm the only one here today. Why? Because 3 of them just left because you intimidated them. You've got George Uhas, who you're practically going to put in jail. Why would you want to see more people to give their opinion of how they feel about what you're doing?
Optics.
Yes. So, they're not encouraging their constituents to come. They're
dissuading them.
They're dissuading them.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I see. A lot of people just say, they throw their hands up and say, what difference is it going to make? But it can make a difference. You get behind a candidate that really doesn't have an agenda as far as which, and I think that's why you're going to start seeing independents start to have more traction than just the typical R's and the D's because they're not being heard. So, I know right now it's the only avenue we have is to become more community minded. Take your neighbor to these things. They are easily intimidated. I went in with a press pass to the courthouse. They were so fearful of that.
The press pass.
The press pass. Yes. They put me in the corner because they didn't know what to do with me. I said, as a matter of fact, the first time I went in, they prevented me from going in. It was the beginning stuff for George Uhas. They prevented me from going in. And so I marched up to the commissioners. I said, my First Amendment rights were just taken away from me. So a call was made, and then that never happened again. But the next time I went in, they said, we don't know what to do with you. I said, what do you mean? I'm going up to the courtroom. Have a seat there. So I had to sit there for half an hour before they decided what to do with me. I went up to the courtroom. But
just to practice your rights.
Yes. And so when you see people who are, the fear is put into them. I mean, to me, it just emboldened me even more. That's just the way it was. But so if that little press pass scared the hell out of them, what happens if 100 constituents show up at the courthouse door and say, we're tired of this, or at the school board meeting, we're tired of this. We're tired of our taxes being raised. You have one school board meeting, he's bumping his chest, and and I'm very happy about our results. Happy about our results? You've got kids who can't read or write. They don't pass the test. You have a career day up there, and I had a mom come in, and she was so devastated because on career day, you have young ladies walking around with practically bras on. Like, so we teach them.
What career is that?
Well,
OnlyFans?
So there's a book out there. It's called Dress for Success. It's been out forever, but it's talking about how do we become more successful and what do we have to do. And my intention is to buy that book, and I'm going to hand it to the administration at the school board. Because why are you so bragging of the fact that you're doing this great job when these kids can't read or write?
I mean, the Scranton School District's the same way. You got kids showing up with guns, and then they're like, hey, we built a STEM center. And it's like, hey, whoa. How many kids could take advantage of that STEM center? Like 100? You have 10,000 kids in this school district?
Well,
you're focusing on.
Yes. Well, they're spending
the rows in the field of shit.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like keep up with the Joneses. So now we're putting it the school district into the solar panel.
Yeah, the solar stuff.
Oh, but there's a little caveat to that too. They just realized they have to spend $5 million on a new HVAC system.
Oops.
Why did you not know that before? Why? Because now we're going to have the biggest solar system in all the state. I don't care. Why?
You don't need it.
Yeah. So our HVAC, we have to put in $5 million. I don't know what kind of HVAC that is, but it seems like an awful lot. But I don't know those.
I was at a school board meeting the other night. They have a generator over at the Scranton one of the school, I forget which school it was. They have a generator in case the shit hits the fan.
Yes, right.
3 years ago, they noticed water in the oil.
Oh, jeez.
And no one fixed it. So now you know
it's gone.
So now you know how much it's going to cost?
No.
$300,000 because one service guy didn't come in and fix the problem. And now it's just gotten to the point where it's like we got to replace the whole thing.
So they're incompetent. Incompetent people are running.
Or ignorant. What's the difference? Both are terrifying. It's like that. It's that old. Who wrote Contact? What was Sagan? Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan.
Yeah, I think it was him that said, he goes, either there are other things in the universe, other people, other beings in the universe, or they're not. Both ideas are frightening.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You know, either you're all alone or somebody's screwing with you.
Yeah, somebody's screwing with you. But here's the positive. There was such a small percentage in 1776 that said we're tired.
It was 2%.
2%. Yes. So what? It's the ones that are loud. What you're doing here tonight. You know what
I'm doing. I've said it to Dan many times. What are you doing?
What?
It looks like you're working a keyboard and you're trying to write your symphony.
Whatever. Just keep talking.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, you got to go?
Something you say all the time.
Oh, forget it. You got to go, right?
Shortly, yeah.
Shortly.
Okay. I'm not going to go into it. Is there any hope for us?
Yes, absolutely. There's hope for us.
And it's organizing. It's it's communicating. It's being honest.
Right.
Last question. Are you a Kennedy, Biden, or Trump guy?
Oh my gosh. You know what? Definitely not a Biden guy.
All right, fair enough.
Okay. I have looked at Kennedy many times because I love sometimes there's some of the things that Kennedy is saying is some of the things that Trump is saying as well. I think that I do believe that both candidates are pro-American candidates.
Sure.
You know, I do believe that at this point in time, I'm probably leaning. I don't know how powerful Kennedy is. And the people have coalesced against, with Trump. I really think that, there was a fellow I work with. He said, nobody wants Trump. I said, have you looked at the primaries? Because, so if I had my way, I would love a Trump Kennedy ticket, but that's never going to happen.
So my real quick theory on it is and I love Robert Kennedy.
Yes, I agree.
If you vote for Kennedy, you don't get Trump.
Yeah.
And you don't get everything that comes with it.
Right.
If you vote for Trump, I think you get Kennedy. After the election.
After the election, yes.
After the election.
And I have heard rumor that
I think Kennedy can make a good go at it.
Oh, yeah. Well, he puts, if anything, he's putting the fear in both these parties.
Well, you know what else he did? He brought back, I don't know, a long-form discussion.
Yes.
A nuanced, long-form discussion.
And the guy can do push-ups.
Yes.
I can't.
You know what I mean? The only criticism I hear of people, and I yell at them all the time, they're like, his voice. I'm like, you get used to it. Who cares?
Do that? Who cares?
It's not what he's saying. It's how he says it.
Yes.
Yeah. Katharine Hepburn is terrible.
Yes. I don't know what happened to it, but that doesn't bother me at all.
He now believes he was vaccine injured.
Interesting. Interesting.
Convenient.
And I love, I'll leave you.
It did work out well.
But I would like to see Tulsi Gabbard in the mix.
I love her too.
Yeah.
I really like her. I wouldn't mind Trump choosing her either.
I had read something briefly. How accurate it is that Kennedy asked her to be a candidate, and she said no, in anticipation of perhaps Trump will. But I think we're going to have to start realizing that people disagree on things, and that's okay. And we could still be friends, and we could still talk to each other, and without this vitriolic. Yep. And here's why I'm positive. I'm seeing change within our society. I'm seeing more awareness within our society. I'm seeing candidates popping up that normally people wouldn't even take a look at it. Locally. That's what I say. Jamie, for example. Jamie Walsh. Right. So I keep talking. I'm going to text him right now. Did you win? Right. And please, for the love of God, tell me you won. So there are candidates out there that are getting on the ballot and winning that would never have been thought of 10 years from now. Or 10 years ago. So I really think that communities are waking. They're becoming more involved I'm hoping they become even more involved in their local communities, because that's where it's going to start. All politics is local, brother. Yeah, it is. Yep. And it's, when I went, because I had a brief part of insanity that I was trying to get on the ballot to go against Pickett, but I went there and they said, well, what are you about? I said, I'm about term limits. Yeah, you're in. I'll sign your paper for you. So there were things that I said, I'm in for cameras in the courtroom. Where's that paper? I'm in for free and equal elections that everybody gets a shot at it. Where's that paper? These, you know what?
They're simple ideas.
Yes.
And that everyone can agree with.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, why are we focused on things nobody agrees with instead of things that we can agree with?
Because it divides us and it doesn't unite us.
Exactly.
That's why we're all fucking screwed.
Right. Exactly. But there is hope, and I'm going to continue to believe that. I'm going to continue to work to, for a better government and a better culture.
Mike, Justice Watch. I'm happy I met Lou to meet you. I'm happy you came down here and you didn't shine shit and you told the truth. Yes. And I'm really grateful for that. Well, and will you keep us in the loop on things that you guys are doing in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. You can guarantee it.
All right. Did you have fun? Was it okay?
I did. I loved it. It's an opportunity to be truthful.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's that's the way to love.
Yeah.
I think truth is the way to love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dan.
What a Week podcast, an opportunity to be truthful. That's a mouthful. I got to work on that one.
Want to do take 2 of What a Week?
Hold on, ready? Got that?
Yeah.
All right. What a Week podcast, an opportunity to be truthful.
You're so gay.
Outro.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, don't chill.
All right. So if you people have been watching this far, I'm going to chill for a second. So throughout the video, every time somebody does a thumbs up, I don't know why it's not working right now, but a little thing comes up on the screen here. It floats up from the Apple. We need to turn that setting off. It's kind of fun because you talk, you kind of do this when you're talking. And it kept like popping up. And he did it once too. And I saw it. And I've seen it before.
Wow.
So oh, no, just do it. It's great. Because what I'm going to do is I want people to comment under the video how many thumbs up they have. And then for all the comments, whoever's in there, I'll raffle off one of our Make America Terrible Again hats.
That's really cool.
And then, so
Does
yeah.
it show there how many people are watching? Or?
Afterwards, yeah.
Afterwards, yeah.
Like, share, subscribe. Hit that bell.